This afternoon, we're working on session 2 of Med Instead of Meds, which is a nutrition program that's been created at NC State with some partners, and it is a really good curriculum. I covered the first chapter last week. Today, we're going to start with the second one. We're going to start off today. I am going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to show a quick little introduction video. So give me just a second to do that. And here is our video.
The traditional diet of the Mediterranean region is one of the world's most delicious and healthy ways to eat. Eating the Medway can help you feel your best.
Shoot.
So how can you begin eating the Medway? Well, it's just a matter of making simple changes to your regular meals and snacks. Med Flips helped you transform popular foods into tasty Mediterranean-style dishes. And Med Tips give you practical advice for eating the Medway every day. An important step in eating the Medway is to change the protein in your diet. Replace red and processed meats with plant proteins, seafood, and white meat poultry. Changing the protein in your diet is easy and delicious with these Med Flips. Flip that burger. Mushroom beef burgers replace half the meat with mushrooms. Or change your protein completely by using fish to make our tuna burger or salmon burger. You can also flip your burger by using beans and nuts. Try our quinoa pinto bean burger, yummy lentil sliders, and tempting mushroom almond burger. All of these recipes are easy to prepare and simply delicious. Another great way to make a Med change is to flip your pasta sauce. Replace the ground beef in your sauce with vegetables, beans, poultry, or seafood. Give our mouth-watering whole wheat pasta with beans and greens a try. Or impress your family with our basil shrimp and tomato pasta with feta. Spice up your week by flipping your traditional ground beef tacos for our mushroom beef tacos. Or try our fish tacos with avocado mango salsa. Following these simple Med tips will also help you change the protein in your diet. Choose plant proteins such as beans and nuts often. Beans are a flavorful addition to sides, pasta, burgers, and salads. Eat seafood at least 3 times a week. We have lots of seafood recipes to get you started. Check out all these tasty recipes, along with other helpful resources at medinsteadofmeds.com.
Okay, so that was our introduction video for tonight. I am going to now share the PowerPoint and talk through that. I'm going to hide my own face so that you don't have to look at my mug. And I'm going to put the PowerPoint up and we'll walk through that. And don't forget, Don, if you have questions or you want to stop me, don't hesitate to do that. You can just hit that chat box there. So this week is change your proteins. We're going to talk through real quickly just a little review of what we learned last week, what eating the Medway looks like. So basically, these are the components of the Medway, and we'll go through them fairly quickly. So eating lots and lots of fruits and vegetables, eating whole grains, eating beans and legumes, eating fish and other seafood at least 2 to 3 times per week, eating nuts and seeds, replacing solid fats such as butter with healthy fats, particularly olive oil, using herbs and spices, and then drinking wine, of course, in moderation. We talked about that 1 glass for women and 2 for men. And then the Medway also recognizes the importance of these things. That's physical activity, making sure you're active throughout the day, enjoying your meals, spending time with friends and family, and then finally limiting added sugar, particularly in our sugar-sweetened beverages, baked goods, and other processed foods. So what sets the Medway apart from other eating patterns? Well, basically, the Medway is simply simple, delicious, and satisfying. Simple because those recipes and the ingredients that they have that you can make from this website, use simple food preparation techniques. It doesn't take a whole lot of culinary know-how, if you will. Most of the things that are done in these recipes we already know how to do. They're delicious. The Medway uses healthy fats, spices, herbs, and aromatics to make food delicious and craveable. And finally, the most important thing to me is that it's satisfying. The Medway uses foods that promote you being full and feeling like you have had enough to eat. Very tasty. So how can we eat the Medway? And these are those 7 steps that we talked about last week. Just a real quick review. The first one, which we're talking about tonight, change your protein, swap your fats, eat more vegetables, eat more fruit, snack on nuts and seeds, make your grains whole, and rethink your sweets. So today's class is going to focus on changing your protein. Let's try that again. Simple step 1, change your protein. The Medway emphasizes eating primarily plant-based foods. Replace some of the meat in your diet with plant proteins, and they're talking about beans and legumes. There are others, but beans and legumes primarily is one of the things they're asking us to switch out our high fat meats with. Eat fish and seafood 2 to 3 times per week. Include fatty fish such as mackerel and salmon. Of course, they want us to avoid fried fish. Choose white meat poultry such as turkey and chicken, and limit our red meat or choose a lean version of a red meat if you're going to have red meat. What steps can you take to change your protein? For example, flipping your protein to make it more med-like. So to do that, we're going to limit meat, including beef, pork, and lamb. We're going to limit or eliminate high processed meat. We're going to choose white meat poultry. We're going to increase our fish and seafood. We're going to increase our plant protein, beans, nuts, and seeds. And we are going to do the Medway when we're talking about dairy and eggs. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on in class. So changing your protein is arguably the most impactful dietary change you can make. This is a protein choice continuum. This might help take the confusion out of the importance of this Medway step. So beans, nuts, and seeds. We're starting over there on the left at eat more. As we go to the right in the continuum, you'll see that it says eat less. And let me make sure that since I can see this on my screen, let's get that out of the way. All right. So eat more. On the left-hand side, we start with beans, nuts, and seeds. So we want to eat those often. Eating more plant proteins is a great way to improve our health. And we want to replace some of the meat in our diet with beans, nuts, and seeds often. They said that several times in our show already. So the next one is fish and seafood. Eat fish and seafood 2 to 3 times per week, about 3 to 4 ounce servings, and make at least one serving a high-fat fish such as salmon. Eat fried fish only occasionally. Doesn't say we can never eat it, but eat it only occasionally. Then we go to white meat poultry. Choose white meat poultry such as turkey or chicken breast. Eggs and dairy. Here we go with that eggs and dairy. It says eat eggs up to 7 times per week. Choose fat-free dairy products such as a fat-free yogurt and milk. So that's how you go about that on the Medway. Lean meat is right in the center of that continuum. Choose lean meat such as lean or extra lean pork, beef, veal, or lamb, or choose lean cuts. So you might look for those loin or round in the name. That kind of indicates it's a leaner meat. Choose meats with minimal visible fat or marbling that you can see on it. Opt for the lowest percentage of fat when selecting ground meat. Ask your grocer or your butcher for further assistance when selecting lean and extra lean cuts. Then as we're going to the right of that center, we've got dark meat poultry. We want to limit dark meat poultry such as chicken thighs and legs, a lot higher in fat than the white meat poultry. Higher fat dairy. Limit higher fat dairy products. You see there cheese, and I think that is sour cream behind it, but it's hard to tell. But definitely those high fat cheeses, we want to avoid those. Higher fat meat. Limit higher fat meat cuts from pork, beef, veal, and lamb. And limit consumption of organ meat, such as liver, to about only 3 ounces a month. The final thing over here where it says eat less is highly processed meat. Greatly limit or eliminate even your highly processed meat. And this includes some of my husband's favorite, bacon, sausage, and most of our deli meat. We should eliminate those altogether, according to the Medway. All right, this slide says limit meat, and we've said this several times. Limit beef, pork, and lamb. The amounts suggested to go med vary. We recommend no more than 2 to 3 times per month, with serving sizes of only 4 to 6 ounces. Less than that's even better. Changing your protein is arguably, we said this in the first part in our little video, is arguably the most impactful dietary change you can make. More fish, more plants, but limit your meat. All right. This is a med tip, and we'll see some of these as we go throughout this curriculum. Med tips are just some tips you can use to help you be able to manage and eat this Medway. So this med tip says replace half of the ground meat in your recipe with vegetables. They'll help decrease the amount of meat you're eating while allowing you to still enjoy familiar flavors. The example here, we've got on the left, mushroom beef burger, and on the right, mushroom beef taco. In both of these, they have used half of the ground beef that you would typically use, and they have replaced the other half of the meat that they would use. Let's say you were using a pound, say half a pound of beef and then a half a pound of mushrooms. And those mushrooms have been ground up, not too fine, but ground up in a food processor, cooked until all the water's out of them. And then you mix that in with the burger and you cook it just like you would normally. And believe it or not, I have eaten it and it is absolutely delicious. Though it may not sound so delicious to some people. It is very, very, very good. You could even opt for ground turkey or ground chicken to make your meal even more med if you choose to do so. More med tips. Greatly or eliminate highly processed meats. Research shows that there is no safe level of highly processed meats in our diet consumption. As such, it's important to limit consumption to very rare occasions or eliminate it from your diet entirely. Another one says use less bacon in recipes. Freeze your bacon and use it 1 piece at a time. So you're just using a little bit at a time. Very important step there. This is a life hack. These will be offered throughout the curriculum as well. And this one says choose white meat poultry. Eat white meat poultry such as turkey and chicken. And your life hack that goes along with this is to cook enough chicken for 2 to 3 meals. And when you're making chicken, load up your grill, your oven, or your stovetop so that you've cooked enough for several days worth of meals. And so that lessens the stress on you and the trouble of you got to go through to cook all this stuff. So that's a really helpful life hack. Changing your protein and eating less meat is healthy for you and it's healthy for the planet. Replacing meat with healthy proteins, particularly plant proteins, is healthy for you, again, and healthy for the planet, as healthy protein production has a smaller environmental footprint than meat production. Eat fish 2 to 3 times per week. Make at least 1 serving a high-fat fish such as salmon. Now, for these recipes, you can check out medinsteadofmeds.com. And here are some examples of some fish recipes that are available on the website. And I have eaten all of them, and they're all absolutely yummy. You'll get the chance to try them. So there's a salmon burger, basil, shrimp, and tomato pasta with feta, and then a fish taco with avocado mango salsa. Maybe at the end we'll get a chance to look at some of the recipes. Take a look at that. Another life hack, Salmon Saturday. You want to increase your fish consumption. So maybe you have a salmon Saturday. You cook fish every Saturday to ensure that you get at least one serving of a fish per week. So that might be something you add to your weekly plan. Common questions about fish and eating the Medway. Here are some common questions. Do I have to eat fish to go med? What can I do about fish being expensive? What about mercury? Is it okay to eat farm-raised fish? You can incorporate other aspects of eating the Medway, leaving fish and seafood out, and still have a healthy Medway eating pattern. But if you're not currently a fish seafood fan, we encourage you to try some of the Medway fish and seafood recipes and see if you can find a few that you might like. So they feel like it's very important to include some fish in our diet if you can. What can I do about fish and seafood being expensive? This is one of the questions they had. Choose canned. Canned fish and seafood are healthy and affordable options. Sales and coupons. Make sure you take advantage of store and sales coupons on fresh, frozen, and canned fish and seafood. A little note here, by eating the Medway, you will be replacing meat with fish, seafood, and other healthy proteins. So this will decrease your food budget in other ways. So that's a good thing to know. Okay, so our next slide. What about mercury? Let's look at this slide. Are we making too much of mercury? Don't let the fear of mercury stand between you and eating fish. Most commonly eaten fish and seafood are low in mercury while offering many health and nutrition benefits. These are some examples of some low mercury fish that they give. You hear salmon, pollock, oysters, shrimp, catfish, clams, scallops, flounder, cod, canned chunk-like tuna. I'm going to skip on over to that one because I know that's something that we probably eat quite frequently. So if you look at the picture of, it shows a picture of the food chain here on the very left, that great big fish, that might be a shark, pike, albacore, or halibut. And you see they have a higher mercury level because they eat all of that other fish in quite large amounts. And as you go down to the fish on the right, that's the bluefish, salmon, or pollock, or oyster, you can eat that unlimited amount because they don't eat as much smaller. They eat smaller fish, but they don't eat as much of it as those larger fish do. Does that make sense? So pregnancy and small children. So if you're pregnant, you don't eat raw, partially cooked, or high mercury fish, such as shark, swordfish, king mackerel, tilefish, marlin, orange roughy, or big eye tuna. You certainly don't eat a large catch from any contaminated water, and eat a variety of low mercury fish each week. For more information about that, and the website's not up here, but I'll tell you what it is, fda.gov/food resources for you and consumers. You can go there and they can give you information about mercury in fish if you want more details, more information on that. And let me know if you want that website emailed to you, or I can message it to you. All right, next slide. What is better, farm-raised or wild-caught? It is impossible to give a sweeping statement on whether farm-raised or wild-caught is better. This determination depends on the specifics of the seafood item being purchased and how it was produced. Consumers need to they need to be savvy regarding the specific fish and seafood items they purchase to make an informed decision. There can be good and bad farm-raised and wild-caught options. There's a resource, one that's very good that I've been on before, that you can go to, seafoodwatch.org, can help you make some better informed decisions about fish. Sometimes there are, they put out precautionary statements if there's water that's bad and where they don't want you to eat fish from at a particular time. So that's a good site, seafoodwatch.org. All right, so what is better, farm, raised, or wild caught? Resources to help consumers make informed seafood purchase decisions are the seafoodwatch.org one I just gave you, seafoodhealthfacts.org, fishwatch.gov, and ncseagrant.ncsu.edu. So there are several websites you can go to get more information about safety of our fish. Increase our plant protein, one of the big staples of the med diet. Eating more plant-based proteins, for example, beans and legumes, is a great way to improve your health. Beans and legumes are lower in calories and higher in fiber than other sources of protein. Important thing to remember. They also provide a sense of fullness and satisfaction when you're eating. Another life hack. Cook beans and legumes in bulk to use during the next few days or freeze for later use. You might make double of lentils with cumin vinaigrette. You see that recipe there? And use as a bed for fish or chicken for another meal. You might make double of the quinoa pinto bean burger recipe, and you can freeze half of it to cook later. Saves you some time and effort in the kitchen. Use hummus. You can use homemade or store-bought hummus. You can use that as a bread spread or on sandwiches in place of butter or mayonnaise. You can use it as a dip for snack in place of cream-based dips or no dip. And this white bean hummus recipe is actually on the Med Instead of Med website. So you can go on Med Instead of Meds and get that recipe. Hopefully, again, we'll get time to walk through that website when we're done. Best beginner bean lentils. They're easy to make. There's no soaking required. They have a short cook time. They come in a variety of types and colors. They can be used in multiple dishes that are in our recipes. For example, lentils with cumin vinaigrette or the lentil and beet salad recipe. Both of those are very delicious. I've had both of them. And I like lentils. Lentils taste good to me, so I think they'd be something you would enjoy. Canned beans are a good option, especially if you are new to beans. Rinse your canned beans before you use them to remove about 30% of the sodium added for packaging. And when you're cooking dry beans, you can use a slow cooker or a pressure cooker to cook dried beans. And I just confused you completely. You can use canned beans, that's the first picture, but rinse those thoroughly. They've got quite a bit of sodium in them. Or you can use these two pictures at the right to use dry beans. I have cooked dry beans in just a matter of minutes without any soaking in my pressure cooker that I call an Instant Pot. Of course, there are various types of those you can get on the market. All right. GoMed life hack. The easiest way to cook a bag of dried beans. Economical and minimal hands-on time are required. So you soak the beans for 48 hours, drain and rinse well, and put in a slow cooker with vegetable or chicken stock and water. You can add vegetables or seasonings as desired, and then you cook them for 8 to 10 hours on low. Minimal hands-on time. Takes them a little while to cook, but you don't have to touch anything. That's a really good option for a lot of people. Why don't more people eat beans? One of the reasons may be gas. And that might be the reason why you would use the slow cooker. So here's some tips. Make sure you cook your beans well. Soak for 48 hours, change the water, cook them in until they're soft. Keep them fully covered with water while you're cooking them. When you're eating beans, make sure you chew them well. Add beans slowly to your diet, particularly if you are not used to eating them. There are some additives you can put in your beans that will help lessen the gas that might come from them. Ginger, I don't know what kombu is. I'll have to look that up for you. Cumin is a really good one episode I've heard of. And ajwain, I think is how you pronounce that. I'm not familiar with that one either. But ginger and cumin are readily available and tasty. So those might be some that you can add. And then add the salt very late in the cooking. You don't put them in at the very beginning when you start. You don't put that in at the very beginning when you start cooking. And the final thing is rinse well. Canned beans need to be rinsed well. And then you can cook them to further soften the beans. So you have a pot of beans in your refrigerator, or you might have a can of beans in your pantry. Now what? You add to salads. You can put them in beans and rice. You can use them to make hummus or other bean spreads. You can add them to burritos, tacos. You can serve them as a side dish drizzled with some olive oil, or you can make a bean soup, blend half and add them back to the pot. When I make a lentil soup, I basically put a non-fat broth and some sliced onions and cook them in that, and it makes the most wonderful bean soup you ever want to try. So there are all kinds of things you can do with your beans. Very versatile. What about vegetarian and the Medway? So eating vegetarian is consistent with the Medway of eating. Protein is usually not an issue if consuming plant proteins such as beans and legumes. Fish and seafood. Only items that vegetables are missing from the Medway, that vegetarians are missing from the Medway of eating, fish and seafood. Vegetarians may be missing out on omega fatty acids, particularly EPA and DHA, due to not eating fish or seafood. So you might want to talk to your doctor to see if you need a supplement or a vegetarian alternative should be considered. B12, if vegan and not consuming fortified foods, B12 may need to be supplemented. Talk to your doctor again to determine what your needs are. And then tofu and soy, they're not a miracle, like some people may profess, but they're also not a demon. So tofu, if you want to eat tofu, that's okay. And if you don't, that's okay too. What about dairy and eggs? We're going to go a little deeper into this that we talked about earlier. What about dairy and eggs and the Medway? The traditional Mediterranean diet is not high in dairy, 1 to 2 servings per day. Yogurt, choose low fat or fat free. Cheese in small amounts. Milk in small amounts also. Choose skim or low fat milk if you're going to do milk. And then eggs, you can eat up to 7 eggs per week. I think I may have said day earlier when we were talking, but I should have said week. Up to 7 eggs per week. Choose fat-free or low-fat dairy, or if eating higher fat dairy, eat it in smaller amounts. So your Mediterranean diet is obviously very low in saturated fat. The American Heart Association and the American College of Cardiology recommend a low saturated fat diet for our heart health. Take steps to change your protein. So we want to limit that meat, which is beef, pork, and lamb. Limit or eliminate highly processed meats. Choose white meat, poultry. Increase our fish and seafood. Increase plant protein, beans, nuts, and seeds. And eat dairy and eggs the Medway. So again, this is the 3rd time they've mentioned this because clearly it is very important. Changing your protein is arguably the most impactful dietary change you can make. I'm trying to get that point across to us. Mindful eating and the Medway. Eating mindfully means eating with awareness of what is on your plate and also the entire eating experience. It's being present in the moment, enjoying every aspect of the meal that you're eating. So when you're talking about mindful eating and meal planning is a key step to being mindful of your entire eating pattern. Planning meals will help you be mindful of the types of proteins you're eating. It will assist you in changing your protein and make it easier to choose a healthy protein and protein options such as plant-based proteins, fish, seafood, and white meat, poultry on a regular basis. So make time to plan. Set aside about 30 minutes to plan. Make a list of the main dish and side dishes you will serve for each day of the week. Use Medway recipes to help you plan at medinsteadofmeds.com. And I have some really neat pads once we're able to see each other in person that I'll give you guys that'll help you plan and then make a shopping list from them. They're really helpful tools. Med tips. Keep it simple. Select recipes with few ingredients. It doesn't have to be complicated to be delicious. That is for sure. These recipes prove that every time I look at them. It's simple, delicious, and satisfying to eat the Medway. So choose recipes that you feel comfortable preparing. You will learn how to prepare many recipes during the Med Instead of Meds class series, hopefully. That part's going to be done at home. So hopefully you will get a chance to try some of the recipes. And then finally, choose entrees that are simple cooking techniques, such as sauteing and roasting and grilling. Quite simple to do. And always explore that Med Instead of Meds website for simple, delicious, and satisfying recipes. So tips for eating the Medway: make a shopping list. Make a list of all the items you will need for the week. Check what you have before you go to the grocery store to make sure you're not duplicating anything. Include the basics, but maybe some things that you already have in the house and some things that are your favorites, perhaps. Keep it interesting. Get your family involved in the planning. Use foods that are in season. Try a new recipe each week. I think that's some very good tips. You may get your family to eat a little better if you involve them in the planning and you try a new recipe that they might like each week. And then talking about using foods in season, plan for fruits and vegetables that are in the stores or farmers markets. In-season foods are often cheaper and taste better when they're fresh. North Carolina has sweet potatoes in the fall, strawberries in the summer, collards in the winter. Of course, canned and frozen vegetables are healthy options as well if you cannot find those fresh in-season items. Keep balance in mind when planning. Visualizing what your plate should look like can help you plan healthy, balanced meals. The Healthy Eating Plate is a great guide for visualizing what to include on your plate when eating the Medway. And if you look here, fruits and vegetables, this is just like the eating plate we've been looking at for quite some time, contain half fruits and vegetables. And then you've got some whole grains and a healthy protein. You're going to use healthy oils and then drink primarily water, tea, or coffee without added sugar and dairy products. So that's a fairly simple eating plan when you're eating the Medway. So it's not too difficult to do. Some of you may eat like that already. Plan for leftovers. Leftovers sometimes get a bad reputation. If you plan to use the extras, however, leftovers become planned overs, and you can make your week a lot less hectic in the kitchen. Making extra of an entree or side dish and planning to have it as another meal is a great way to save time and money. You would not throw away money, so don't throw away any leftovers. Plan to use them for another meal. Okay? There are 3 strategies that you can turn your leftovers into planned overs, and here they are. Think of leftovers as an ingredient, not the same food a second time around. Tonight's roasted chicken, for example, can be reinvented into chicken quesadillas tomorrow night, or throw it on a green salad for lunch the next day, or chop the meat up and mix it with olive oil, celery, walnuts, and grapes for a chicken salad. Really good ideas. Freshen it up. Some foods taste better the next day after the flavors have had a chance to mix and develop. Foods like lasagna and soup often taste better the next day, especially if you freshen them up. Pour extra pasta sauce over a piece of lasagna when you reheat it so it stays nice and moist, or add fresh herbs and toppings such as nuts or a squeeze of citrus to your soup. And then finally, freeze leftovers for later in the month. Freezing foods allows you to have pre-cooked meals that you can pull out on a busy weeknight and serve your family a healthy meal, or serve yourself a healthy meal. If a recipe makes 8 servings and you're only feeding a family of 4, prepare the full recipe and then break it in half. And you can do the math if you have 1, 2, or 3 people to do that as well. So that's a good tip. Great ideas. Organize your pantry, refrigerator, and freezer. This will make your life and meal planning much easier. Organizing allows you to know what you have on hand, what items you need more of, and what items you have in abundance. Organizing will help you use up items that might be reaching their prime and rotate them out with newer items. Organizing is a continual process, and I can tell you guys, it's one I need lots of work on at home. Be mindful about meal planning, food buying, and food preparation. Be realistic about how much time you're willing to give up to do food prep and plan accordingly. Remember, healthy eating is a continuum, not an absolute. So choose healthy-ish over fast food. Okay, that's better than eating the fast food. Healthy-ish eating. This next slide shows the meal planning shopping list I was talking about. So I have some of these available here at the office. You're going to start with commitments that include food. You're going to add weekly standards. You're going to add family go-tos. You're going to add meals based on food you have on hand and items you plan to prep for the week. And you're then going to schedule time for shopping and prep work. This is one strategy for meal planning. You can certainly find a meal planning technique that might work better for you and incorporate that into your diet if this one's not one that you think will work for you. There are several out there. You may have your own that you can come up with. Find your family's standards, such as Salmon Saturday. We talked about Salmon Saturday earlier. It can be helpful and stress reducing to know that every Saturday you have salmon, or every Tuesday maybe you have tacos. So Taco Tuesday, however you choose to do that for your family. And then secondly, find your family's go-tos. Go-to meals allow you to have a few easy meal choices that you know work for you and your family. Try keeping a list of your family go-tos in your cabinet so that they're handy when you do weekly meal planning. Trying to get through these slides fairly quickly, guys. We're almost to the end. We're almost to the recipes. Eating the Medway. Change your protein with Medway videos and recipes. Of course, you find those. There's a picture of the recipe. Today, we're going to explore some Medway recipes. Just talk about them just a little bit. If you were here in person with me, we'd actually be making some of them. I look forward to that happening sometime in the future. So here are some really good ones. We may have already discussed these, and that's okay. White bean hummus. Very good with some vegetables as a dip. A healthy choice versus some of those really fatty dips that we like. This is lentil and beet salad. If you like beets, some people do not like beets. I made roasted beets last night for dinner. They were delicious. So this has lentils and beets. And it's got some feta cheese, I believe that's what that is, on it. I think it's feta, it's not goat cheese, I don't believe. But it's very tasty, you guys. Very fulfilling meal. Whole wheat pasta with beans and greens is absolutely delicious. Very filling. I've had this before. I fixed that at home. My family actually liked that, so that was a good hit for them. Here's the mushroom beef taco that we talked about. And then the next one is our tuna burger. I'm going to go back to this mushroom beef taco. So when you do the preparing of the mushrooms for the mushroom burgers, mushroom and beef burgers, you have to prepare them ahead of time and let the mixed up mushrooms cool, and then you have to make the burgers, and you have to let the burger sit. So I would do those perhaps on the same night you make these mushroom beef tacos, which you don't have to do so much waiting for. You go ahead and cook those once you have the mushrooms chopped up. But that might be an extra life hack to go ahead and do those together so that you have less prep time with the mushrooms. Our next one, the tuna burger, is absolutely delicious. I believe this recipe, I know the salmon burger does. I believe this recipe calls for fresh tuna, but you can certainly use canned tuna in this, and I may be telling you wrong. Salmon burger does definitely call for fresh salmon, but you can use canned salmon as well. It tastes yummy. a quinoa pinto burger. These are very, very good. If you've never tried quinoa, that's a plant-based protein to put in with your pintos, and an absolutely yummy tasting burger. Turkey and bean taco salad. I don't know if you guys like hot stuff, and those jalapenos are calling my name. I really like spicy foods, and that salad is absolutely yummy. And then black bean soup. This is a very filling, wonderful soup to have, particularly in the wintertime, but I would eat it any time of year. It's delicious. And that gets us through our PowerPoint.